The signal, 1 lap to go under caution. And then we get the green again at Daytona. Given from the flag stand, 25 cars by my unofficial count still circulating. We've had a lot of activity in the pits as cars in various states of disrepair pull in after a tremendous accident that has taken some 13 cars out of this 32nd running of the Goody's 300. Earnhardt is the leader as the pace car leads the field around single file. They'll get the green this time. A tremendous accident on lap 14 took out more than a dozen cars. Let's get caught up on the activity in the garage now with Neil Bonnet.
We're here with Rusty Wallace, and they told me to ask you how it feels to be a car owner right now.
I'm going to tell you, I'm not having any fun at it right now. My pocketbook's getting thinner. I'm glad I won the championship last year to afford this thing.
I'll tell you what, sometimes you let your little brother borrow your car, it gets in rough shape.
Yeah, really, especially when he takes that for his first date. But anyway, he's not hurt. Everything's cool, and they're going to try to get the thing fixed and get back in so we get some points. It looks like the whole doggone Busch Grand National Field, all the guys he runs against are sitting in the garage area. So if we get it back together a little bit, we might be able to salvage some points out of this deal.
If anybody knows about points, it's Rusty. He worked on them last year.
Yeah, thank you very much.
And won the Winston Cup Championship by about 26, as I recall, Johnny.
And that's the key point. All the main people they're going to run against for that championship, most of them are sitting in there with him, so anything they can do to get out. We're getting ready to go back green.
The red pace car pulls off. Dale Earnhardt leads the Indian file of the remaining contenders in this Goody's 300. We told you it'd be full of action, folks, and we have definitely had that. The green flag waves once again, and the number 3 of Dale Earnhardt leads Jimmy Hensley and Harry Gant across the line. Immediately, cars go 2 and 3 wide. But a breakaway up front, the 3-car of Earnhardt and the 25 of Hensley open up a quick 6-car gap. They really seem to have the horses today.
Yeah, and they're also, I think they probably talked or agreed some way or smart enough to say, hey, let's stay right together, let's hook up, let's run away and try to do it. But the problem is that they're going to have about 10 or 15 cars that are going to hook up the same way. A pack led by Harry Gant's going to try real hard to run them down, but it's smart for them to run just like that because they want to make sure they get to turn 4 safely because there was a lot of junk down there.
You can bet every man in this field will be taking a good close look at this area right here where we just had that huge wreck. Dale Earnhardt won this race in 1982. He won it again in 1986. That 4-year gap brings us right up to 1990, so at least the numbers are in his favor. Jimmy Hensley, the car, red, white, and blue behind him. You see him getting a little bit skittish in the draft. The flow there around the number 3 car. He wants to get right up close so that he runs through the hole punched in the air by the number 3 car, let it close in behind him, and that's called drafting, the aerodynamic phenomenon that lets them go faster as a 2-car train that any 1 car can't alone.
And a lot of people don't understand about drafting. Jimmy Hensley can be running his car half throttle and Dale Earnhardt pulling it along. Therefore, he will get a lot better gas mileage than Dale Earnhardt. So there's a lot of strategy in drafting also, and you may not always want to lead that draft.
After the start line shuffle, Earnhardt and Hensley lead, followed by Harry Gant, Dale Jarrett, Greg Sachs, Sterling Marlin, Dick Trickle, and Ernie Irvan. Behind them, you see the cars going too wide again. We'll have some position changes. We'll bring those to you as soon as we can. But right now, it is all Dale Earnhardt. There you see the young man from Kannapolis, North Carolina, the Intimidator, they call him. And that is Jimmy Hensley, who has never won this race.
Jimmy Hensley in the number 25 car, the blue car right behind Dale Earnhardt, has been a great racer. You can see by looking at his picture, Jimmy's not a high school boy. He's been through this a long time. He's a very intelligent race car driver, one of the best liked people on pit road, one of the most respected. And he's going to hook up there, and these Winston Cup guys are coming behind him. They'll hook up. We're going to have some good, hard, clean racing now.
There are your leaders. You can see the gap behind them to the pack of 4. Earnhardt and Hensley up front. Earnhardt likes to lead lots of laps. I think he led the most, well, perhaps second to Rusty Wallace in last year's Winston Cup Series. He likes to be up front where the air is clean and he can stay out of trouble. They call him the Intimidator. They say he's brash and arrogant and aggressive and he'll push you around the racetrack. I don't think he really wants to push you around unless he has to, but he's not afraid to when he does.
Well, he's never backed down from a fight, I will say that. But he's a race car driver's race car driver. I mean, I think you see that black car, it does intimidate you a little bit, and he plays off of that. But certainly there's a lot of people out there that he cannot intimidate, and he certainly don't try with the people he knows he won't work with.
Speaking of one of those folks, folks. He's leading that second pack of 4. Harry Gant with Dale Jarrett, Greg Sachs, and Sterling Marlin right behind him. 112 miles an hour, the average speed to this point, because of the lengthy caution period. That is well under the record of 162.6 miles an hour set back in 1978 by Darrell Waltrip. Here is the battle for third. Gant to the left of your screen, followed by Dale Jarrett, Greg Sachs, Sterling Marlin. As we looked at the 46 car there of Greg Sachs, you can see the windshield kind of flopping in the wind. There are tremendous forces on these cars.
Let's talk about these cars for a second. Harry Gant's car is owned by Ed Whitaker. 2 years ago, they won 5 races. They dominated this series, even though they ran a limited schedule. Then we come back with Dale Jarrett in the 32 blue and white car right behind him. He's a Winston Cup driver, a lot of experience. He doesn't have a Winston Cup ride this year, and he's trying to show a lot of people in Daytona, you need to put me in a big-time car. Greg Sachs, same situation. He's in one of Robert G's cars, the green and yellow car. And Robert G has one of the finest race cars in America, best motor program, Rick Hendrick's car, movie. I think it's Tom Cruise is not driving it. It is Greg Sachs, but Tom Cruise is double in the movies.
We're back up to the front once again. Earnhardt in number 3. The 25 is Jim Hensley. Let's get a quick word from Neil Bonnet.
Well, there's no doubt there's a big race on the racetrack, but this is the biggest scramble I've ever seen in the garage in quite a while. These guys have got to race just to get these race cars back together. If a man can get one of these things rolling again, he's talking about finishing in the top 20 in points. There's a lot of races. That's a big game for him. So these things are beat all to pieces, but you're going to see some of them rolling again in a little bit.
Well, to reiterate what Johnny Hayes said earlier, if you can get out and just make one lap, you've already beaten all the guys who stayed in the garage.
You couldn't tell clearly by that picture, but that was Tommy Ellis in the Goo Goo Clusters uniform with a hammer in his hand, and I'm sure he's mad enough that he could beat that car real well. So he's going to work real hard. We have the Kenny Wallace car coming slowly down pit road, going behind the wall. I think he's calling it a day.
Tough break for a man who sat on the pole for this race in his first appearance last year. Well, you better believe that got everybody's attention. Now look at the way the gap is closed up. Harry Gant, with the rest of the crowd behind him, is closing right up behind Jimmy Hensley and Dale Earnhardt.
And again, that's drafting. 4 cars together will run faster than 2 cars together. And as I said, now they'll make a train and go. But I think we'll get some racing here. Looks like Harry Gant wants to make a move on Dale Jarrett right away. But I think we'll get some real good racing here now.
And there is the work continuing in the pits.
Tommy Ellis and his crew, they're cutting the frame off, folks. They're going to rebuild that race car to try to get in there to pick up those 8 or 10 spots. That's a frame you're cutting off. This is not little stuff.
It looks to be at the front end of the car. Yeah, there's the engine. It looks like the whole sub-assembly there that holds the radiator, the oil coolers, and so forth. It's going to have to come away. And it's not unusual to see drivers in the Grand National Series putting on the gloves and working on their own race cars. A lot of them help build their own cars.
You see these guys here, right here, pulling this oil cooler off. This little V6 engine will not run without that cooler. They're going to have to stick another one on there, and it's hard to imagine that this wadded up mess here can get out there and run 150 or 60 miles an hour. They're going to get it straightened out, but it's not going to look like when it started, but it'll run.
And that's all they need. With about 25 laps on the book right now, he only needs to go out there and run about 100 laps at whatever speed he can do in order to get those points. Going back to the accident for a second, we have one update on a possible injury. Ron Cooper has a possible concussion, the medics say, and a chin fracture. They've taken him over to Halifax Medical Center for some x-rays. But to the best of our knowledge, Ron Cooper, the only driver injured in any way in that tremendous wreck.
That breaks my heart for Ron Cooper, because he's a kid who went out, spent the big money. They hired Billy Woodruff, who was the Winston Cup crew chief, come down, put their program together, bought all the equipment, and really going for it, and have this kind of break and this kind of start at the first of the year, because there's a kid that's committed, he's sharp, he'll be a big-time Winston Cup driver someday, and I hope he's not hurt so we can see him in Richmond, Virginia next week.
6 cars now make up the lead draft in the Goody's 300. The number 3 is Dale Earnhardt, followed by Jimmy Hensley, who led most of the early laps. Behind them, the number 7 of Harry Gant, Dale Jarrett, Greg Sachs, Sterling Marlin, all in that battle. The 7 is Harry Gant, 32 is Dale Jarrett, who almost won this race last year, but he and Rusty Wallace had a certain coming together. The next thing Dale knew, he was in a heap at the base of turn 4. Plenty of action still to come your way in the 32nd running of the Goody's 300 on Prime Network. Stay with us.